Um, I want to talk to you for a few moments about having the ultimate summer survival guide in your life. Here's what I know about summer. As summer comes along, routines change, schedules change, all kinds of things change, especially if you're a parent, things change. Um, it's not as urgent maybe to get up on a morning, get the kids ready, get them out the door. The routines change. There's a family vacation involved. We've got trips planned. We're going to go see some friends, relatives. You've checked the brochures already. You've been to the website. You've got your reservations, your tickets, all of that kind of stuff. So summer changes, and we enjoy summer in North Dakota because it's so short. There you go. All right. And there's going to be a lot of changes that take place in your life this summer. And it's those changes I want to talk to you about for just a few minutes. In fact, the change that can so easily happen in all of our lives, mine included, this change is subtle. It just kind of happens, and it happens unintentionally. It's a change that none of us plan for, but it's a change that all of us are subject to on any given day. And the change that I want to talk to you about for a few moments can, if it just fulfills itself completely in your life, literally be deadly. And it just happens to all of us. I want you for just a moment to think right now about where you are in relationship to God. I want you to think about your proximity to Him. If you could draw a large circle and God was right in the middle of that circle, church life was somewhere close to the middle of the circle. Your relationship with other believers or followers of Christ, Christians, whatever term you want to use, are kind of close to the middle of the circle. And I put a pen in your hand and I said, I want you to put a mark somewhere in that circle that would represent where you are in proximity to God right now. I mean, way out in the boundaries? Are you kind of close? Are things really good right now? Are you maybe just kind of exploring? Maybe you're a little bit just skeptical on the whole thing. Just mark that circle somewhere in there. Now, okay, so you mark the circle somewhere. You put your dot on that circle. And then I ask you this question. Now, at the end of the summer, when the weather starts to turn chilly and your routine changes, maybe it's the beginning of the school year, I want you after 3 months, after just 90 days, I want you to go back to that same circle. Take a pen and mark your proximity on that circle again to where you think you are with God, with church life, your spiritual condition. I want you just to think about that for just a moment. Because see, one thing that all of us in this room have in common is this. If God is the bullseye in the circle, all of us in the room have this potential to just naturally drift away from center. We don't have to be intentional about moving from center. It just happens. And it happens one decision at a time, one choice at a time, one relationship at a time, one activity at a time. One change in the routine at a time. It just happens so slowly. You don't even know that you're moving. It just happens. It's a little bit like some of you crazy people like to go fishing, right? And I just made a bunch of enemies in this place. And as you're out there in a boat, you can be in a boat on a body of water, and the surface of the water can be smooth as glass. But the boat is still moving somewhere in the water. Because somewhere in the water, beneath the surface of the water, there is a current. And the current pulls you from where you want to be. And that's exactly the way it is for us in life. Life is like being in a stream or being in a body of water. Life is a little bit like that. And life is like a stream that you and I have to cross. There's a destination on the other side of the stream. And I want to say as a pastor, the destination on the other side is this spiritual destination that we need to get to. And the stream represents the current of the culture in which we live. And you and I have to cross that river every day that we're awake and step out into the world. And the moment you step into the world, the moment you step into the culture, the moment you step into the workplace, the moment you go into the school classroom, that current is pulling you away, moving you away from the destination on the other side. It's been said that the Missouri River flows fast enough, even though it doesn't look like it, in the Bismarck area at least, that if you were to swim across the narrowest point in that river, it would sweep you a half mile downstream before you got to the other side. That's exactly what it's like for us when we try to walk close to God. Here's what drifting kind of looks like in our life. And all of us have the potential to drift. Here's what drifting looks like. It's so innocent. It just happens. Somebody will say to me, well, I got this job. It's a new job, and I have to work on the weekends, and I don't get Sundays off, or I only get one Sunday off a month. Drifting. Well, I started dating this guy, and, the only time he has off is on the weekends. He works all week long. I don't get to see him, so on the weekend, I want to spend time with him. That's the only time that we get together. I met this girl, and she's just not really into church or into God, that whole kind of thing, but she's kind of getting there a little bit, and so I don't want to offend her, so we just don't do a whole lot of that kind of stuff together. Hey, we bought a cabin out at the lake. And you know how summer is? Here it is. We're coming up next weekend is the whole Memorial Day weekend. And let me just tell you this. Today is the 20th of May, and our first frost will probably happen in 120 days. We want to enjoy that cabin as much as we can. Or how about this poor soul? We bought a boat, we got to get out in the lake, and that boat cost us, and we want to make a good investment and utilize that boat just as much as we possibly can, and the only time that we really get time away is on the weekend, so we're going to use the boat as much as we possibly can, and the kids joined baseball, and there's so much stuff going on the weekends, we just got to be there, and so we'll be back in the fall. Drifting. And here's what I want you to know. I don't care how much you know about God. Knowledge will not prevent you from drifting. I don't care how much you hate sin and love God. That doesn't keep you from drifting. I don't care how close you are right now to God. You've got a potential to drift. So mentally, again, in your mind, draw that circle with God right in the bullseye. Put yourself somewhere in that circle, and let's go back and reevaluate it in 3 months. I've got 2 Sundays with you before the whole summer season sets in. And I thought, I got to talk to you a little bit you'd expect this from a pastor, right? But I'm talking to you like a dad, like somebody who really cares. There's a great example of somebody who did everything wrong so that we can learn how to do everything right. He's a famous character in the Bible. His name is Solomon. Solomon becomes the 3rd king of the nation of Israel. Solomon had the amazing privilege of having 2 encounters with God. One of those encounters, God says, look, Solomon, you can have anything that you want, anything in the world you want. It's a dream. Solomon wakes up from the dream and he says, God, this is an amazing privilege you've given me to be the king. I need wisdom to know how to lead your people. And so God said, because you asked for wisdom to lead your people instead of riches and wealth and longevity of life and victory over your enemies, I'm going to give you more wisdom than I've given anybody else. And as a result, you'll also have favor with these other nations, and I'll bless you. And so Solomon becomes the wisest man who ever lived. He becomes the wealthiest man who ever lived. It was just incredible when you read about the life of King Solomon. And it says in 1 Kings chapter 4, verse number 29, that God gave Solomon very great wisdom and understanding and knowledge as vast as the sands of the seashore. Twice God appears to him. He's got riches, he's got wealth, he's got absolutely everything going for him, but he begins to move away from God. This guy that has these visions, these visitations from God, begins to move away from God, and he moves away from him just like you do and I do. One decision, one choice at a time. He makes one critical decision that in the moment seemed so innocent, but it was a critical decision. And it was a decision that involved, I'm sorry ladies, it was a decision that involved a woman. It wasn't an affair. It was just the wrong woman. So Solomon is a king. And Solomon is going to do what kings do. He's going to be a little bit strategic. The story goes on about Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 3, verse number 1. Solomon makes an alliance with Pharaoh. He's the king of Egypt, and he married one of his daughters. It just seems so innocent. I mean, like, this isn't a love thing. This is a strategy thing. This is a military thing. God would be saying, Solomon, don't you be doing this. Solomon says, no, look, God, this is not a love thing. It's not involving my heart. This is just a strategy so that Pharaoh would not do war with me. And God says, look, why don't you trust me instead of trying to take matters into your own hands and marry this girl? Look, God, no, just don't overreact to this whole thing. And yet, look at the results. You skip ahead a few chapters, chapter 11, verse number 1. Now, King Solomon loved many foreign women. We started with one. Now there's many foreign women. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from amongst the Hittites. You go, okay, big deal. So what? Shouldn't have had more than one wife. You've got a whole bunch of wives, all these nations. Verse number 2, same chapter. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, including Solomon, you must never marry them because they're going to turn your hearts away to their gods. Yet Solomon insisted on loving them anyway. I know this is wrong. I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it just this one time anyway. What if God would have warned him and said, look, Solomon, it's just one decision, one woman, one choice, one time right now, but it's going to turn into a lot more. In fact, it turns into over 700. Solomon would be like, no, God, you don't understand. You don't understand. It's not that big of a deal. But do you remember ever being warned in your life? Come on, we've all been warned. Are you really sure you want to take that job? I mean, if you take that job, you'll never be in church again on Sundays. You'll not see your family as much. No. It's going to be okay. We're just going to try to get ahead financially a little bit. And as soon as we get ahead, I'll change jobs and everything will be okay. Somebody's warning you about, are you sure you want to date that guy? I mean, he's kind of a jerk. Yeah, but, he's not a jerk. He's just really intense. And he's a great guy once you get to know him, Are you really sure you want to date that girl? Well, it's not like it looks. I know what she seems like, but she's really not. And are you sure you want to go into business with that person? Are you sure you want to do that? I mean, they've got a reputation, and I've heard that other people will go into business with them, and this happens, the whole kind of thing. Your daddy warned you, your friends warned you, your mama warned you. But you, in your mind, you're the eternal optimist. It's all going to work out. It'll be just fine. I know this one. I know I shouldn't, but just this one time, I'm going to do this. I know I shouldn't. But I'm going to. I know I have really no business dating that person. I know I have no business going into debt for this. I know I have no business marrying this person. I know I have no business doing this. I know, but just this once. Because we think we can cheat it just this once. Why is it that we're realists when positive things come into our, we're so optimistic when it's unrealistic things? I mean, every time somebody puts money into a slot machine, they think they're the winner. Doesn't work, does it? We just think we're optimistic and everything's always going to work out. And you make this decision. Here's the incredible thing. You make this decision. You make this compromise on Thursday. And guess what happens on Friday? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You went out on that date. You engaged in this activity. You went into debt for this. You made that decision. You bought the boat. You got the cabin. I mean, whatever the realities are in your life, you did it. And the next day, everything looks exactly the same as it did the day before. And you think, well, nothing happened. I guess the pastor was wrong. Doesn't know what he's talking about after all. I have a different perspective on your life than you have on your life. I am maybe more of a constant in the church, and I see the ebb and the flow and the movement of people. And then here's what happens. You're coming to church, and you love church, and worship's great, and you're crying, and you love the pastor, and you're involved in ministry, and then you got that job. You got the cabin. You got the boat. Something happened, and you start to move away from center. You start to move away from the church. And I don't know how it is for you, but I just kind of wonder if people in the church go, I sure hope the pastor doesn't see me outside of church because I don't want to have to explain where I've been for the last 5 Sundays. And then we have that awkward moment. I see you at Walmart, and you're doing the duck and roll behind the toilet paper because you don't want me to see you, right? Oh, it's too late. He got a glimpse of us. And I come over and shake your hand, and there's that kind of clumsy, awkward thing. And even though I don't say it, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, he's wondering, where have we been for the last 5 weeks? Why don't we just avoid that? Why don't we just avoid that altogether? But what we do when we make that little compromise is we plant a seed. And it starts with a thought. And after Solomon marries this one woman, here's the incredible thing. Solomon marries the one woman. And then he builds this temple for God, which becomes one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was an amazing structure. The inside of it was just covered with gold. In fact, it says that during Solomon's reign, silver was so common, it was thought valueless. He imported tons and tons and tons of gold into his country. It was amazing. He builds this incredible temple to God. It's at its zenith. Militarily, he's the strongest, most powerful man in the world. He's got everything going for him. He's built this incredible structure to God. But besides Pharaoh's daughter, these women that he married were from countries that God said you shouldn't intermarry with them because they're gonna turn your heart away from me, Solomon. And it just began with a thought. I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to. Solomon. I mean, here's us reading this historically now. This is 3,000 years ago. We have the privilege of reading about his mistakes. Wouldn't it be great if we could jump into the future and we go back to Solomon and say, Solomon, don't be a dork. Like, you're going to marry these women and the whole country is going to fall flat on its face. Don't do this. And Solomon would probably use the same argument any of us would use to justify our decisions. Hey, it's going to be okay. Wait. And in fact, Solomon would go, wait. Just, would you stop acting like my mom? I built this temple. I'm not going to turn away from God. I built this huge building to God. Like, man, you guys just get so crazy. You understand the process of drifting is so subtle. The process of drifting away from God is so subtle. Don't you underestimate its power over you. It happens so easily. Pastor, it's just one time. It's just one date. It's just one weekend away. It's just a month away. It's just a one-time deal. It's not a big deal. Man, you sound so much like my dad or my parents. And the story goes on. Chapter 11, verse number 4. In Solomon's old age, all these women that he was involved with, did turn his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God as his father David had been. Look at the results, verse number 9. The Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel. His heart had what? His heart had drifted. I mean, if Solomon would have had a big piece of paper and drew that circle on there, and God's right in the middle, Solomon would have said, oh, I'm right there. And when Solomon got older and should have been wiser, he just got dumb and dumber. And if you put the pen in Solomon's hand and he was going to be completely honest, he'd have to say, I got to put my dot way down here somewhere. I moved far, far away from my relationship with God. He followed other gods. In fact, if you read the story about Solomon, not only did he follow the God, he started building temples to these false gods. And when he first became king, if you would have told him that all of this was going to happen, just like any of us in this room, he would have said, no. No. Do you see how easy it is to drift away? It just happens to any of us and all of us. Some of you would say, look, Pastor, I would never do that. I mean, look, I'm at the early service on a Sunday morning. If nothing says I love Jesus more than that, I don't know what does, Here I am. And as we begin, here's what happens. As we begin to make compromises in our life, come on, this is what we all do. We start to make compromises in our life, and then you know what we do? We expect God to support our standards. We start to move away from God. We've made compromises in our life. And now we try to find scriptures, or we try to justify our actions, our choices, our decisions, our lifestyles to match up to the way we're living. At one point, we're so close to God and it's like, oh God, I just want to do whatever makes you happy. But the more we start to move away from God, we start to say, God, I want you to start living in such a way to make me happy. Maybe a warning flag for us is this. Here's a warning flag that you start to drift. Have you ever told a lie to try to cover up for yourself? To maybe make up excuses as to why you're making choices that you are? If you haven't, you will the next time I see you in the grocery store and you haven't been in church for a long time, right? It's just a lot of fun when you're a pastor. Kind of that little orneriness comes over you. I kind of just want to follow behind you and go, what have you been doing? You know, haven't been in church. Anyway, it's just awkward. Something tragic happens in your life. Here's what happens, though. We start to move off center. All of us are candidates. So I don't pick on you. All of us are candidates. I kind of have a little bit of a perception in my own heart to know what can happen here. We start to move off center. We start to move away from God. And you know what? There's really, it's kind of nice being away from church. It's kind of nice just waking up in our cabin in our camper. We bought a camper. And it's a Sunday morning. And Pastor, I can slide open the window of my camper and I can hear the birds sing. I hear the lapping of the waves against the shoreline. And I get so close to God when I'm in nature. And Pastor, when I'm on that fishing boat, I just think about God and his great creation. Pastor, wouldn't it be better that I'm out there fishing and camping and thinking about church instead of being in church and thinking about camping and fishing? Here's my argument on that one. Your wife comes to you, honey, wouldn't it be better for me to be with another man thinking about you than to be with you thinking about another man? Isn't that kind of the way God would take it? And that's kind of what we do. And then we start moving away from center. We kind of get way off center, and life is feeling pretty good. Like all of those things Pastor warned me about, nothing happened. It's all going good. I haven't been in church for weeks, maybe months. And isn't it kind of funny? Some of you, this is your first Sunday back. I don't know who you are, but there's some of you in this room, this is your first Sunday back in a long time, and you're going, why do we pick this sermon to listen to, right? And here you are, you're back here listening to this, and everything is going good. And then tragedy strikes. There's a sore that doesn't heal. Somebody was hurt in a car accident. There's a diagnosis that is serious. And now you scramble. You panic. And you say, where's God? Why didn't God stop this from happening? Let me just tell you, God didn't move, you did. And now you're doing everything you can to try to recapture the feelings that you once had with God. This is what you need to know about drifting so that you can avoid the drifting. This is what you need to know about it. We live in the current that wants to pull us away from God every day. In case you haven't noticed, the popular culture in which we live is not real excited about Jesus. If it was, every TV channel would be about Jesus. Every radio station would be about Jesus. Every book would be about Jesus. Have you noticed it's not quite like that? So that's the culture that we live in. This culture that wants to pull us away from the source of life. See, when you come to the church, this is why I love it when you're at church. When you come to the church, it's a little bit like trying to cross a turbulent stream with all of the powerful waters flowing through that stream, and you find a rock in the middle of it, and you climb to the top of the rock, and you go, oh, it's so good to stop fighting for a while. And church is like that. Church is this place where for a moment we can find some rest from fighting the battle of the current. There are some laws about this current in which we live. Let me share with you 3 of those laws about the current, and then we'll talk for just a second, and then we're going to close in prayer. Let me tell you some laws about the current. Number one law, wherever you dig your heels in, Wherever you dig your heels in while you're in the current, that's the place that you're going to find the greatest resistance. If you make some moral decisions, you say, you know what? Morally, these are some decisions I'm going to make with my entertainment values, my dating values. This is what I'm going to do and not do with my body. Whatever decisions you start to make morally, that's where you have a fight. You know it. As an adult, I think we still feel it, but I feel for our students that want to live some sort of an upright life in the culture that they live in. It's a microcosm in our schools. Maybe we can hide behind it a little bit more as adults in the world in which we live, but suddenly you make a decision on how you're going to handle your money, how you're going to start giving maybe more towards the church, how you're going to handle your entertainment values, your standards, who you're going to date. Look, there's single people in our church, and I know single people want the same thing everybody wants. They want to love and be loved by somebody, and so many people will relax their dating standards so that they can have someone in their life. But you dig in your heels someplace in any of those places, and that's where you begin to feel the fight. The second law about the current is this, that the further down the stream you dig in your heels, the harder the battle. The harder the battle. Because once you're in, it's hard to get out. Let me ask you this. Is it harder to shut off the TV program in the middle or just not watch it altogether? Is it more difficult just to say no to getting into that relationship and that compromising situation and into that bed before you get there, or in the middle of that situation? See, wherever we're at, we start to jump into the stream. We think, well, I can't fight the stream, so I'll just go with it for a while. Then we go with the current for a little while, and we realize this is hard to get out. I'm in the momentum. I'm in the current. I'm moving that direction. I've been gone away from church not one Sunday, not 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe a month or two. How could I possibly show my face at the church again? Everybody there is going to look at me and wonder, where have you been? Why haven't you been here? And then they're going to face the pastor. So I'll just stay away. Which kind of leads me then to the third law. The third law is this. The third thing you need to know about the current is this, that the further down the river you go, the more hopeless it all seems, so you just give up. And then I never see you again. And this is the face of the landscape of the world in which we live. The tragedy of it is this. People who started the race with Jesus, people who made a decision, people who got involved in the church, people who loved God, maybe had nothing to do with the church, nothing to do with it. You just loved God. You loved what he was all about. But there was the one decision, the one compromise, the one marriage that you entered into, the one relationship you got into, the one activity, the one job that you took, and now you've moved so far away that you don't see any way back again. And you beat yourself up over and over and over and over. And you tell yourself repeatedly in your mind what a bad person you are, and you don't deserve the grace of God. Well, we kind of know where all those lies come from. And if you ever get to that place in your life and you're just desperate to get close to center again, get close to God, you are a candidate for the grace of God, who says, I'm so glad you come home. Come on. Come on. Come on. Let's just start all over again. And if you jump into the stream and you start moving down the current, you just go, well, I'll just go along with this for a little while. Now you're closer to the waterfall. And the current gets even stronger to pull you away. But I want you to understand that God is always in the position of inviting you back to a relationship with him once again. Maybe